Throwing away your script is one of the best things that you can do to improve your speaking. Sometimes we focus so much on memorizing words that we forget how to communicate. We want to be pithy. We want to have exactly the right thing to say at the right time. But when we do this, we rob ourselves of one of the most important differentiators between excellent speakers and just okay speakers. And that is your ability to let go. There's this beautiful thing that happens when you're on stage and you suddenly relinquish control. You don't have to have exactly the right words at the tip of the tongue. You can free associate, you can extemporize. And this is what really, really exceptional speakers are good at. The thing is, it's dangerous to free associate on stage because there's an element of risk. There's risk because there's a slight chance, or maybe a slightly larger chance, if you're not familiar with it, that you'll blank out, that you'll just suddenly forget what to say. You'll lose your train of thought in the moment. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about with memorizing scripts. You can actually get to like a 7 or 8 out of 10 as a public speaker by memorizing your script. You can, but the problem is it's a lot of work. You got to spend maybe 2 or 3 days memorizing every single sentence, and it can be a real drain. And it's not really practical if you speak often, like if you're a teacher or a professor. To get to a 10 out of 10 though, as a speaker, to break that 8 out of 10 ceiling, you do have to actually lose the script and learn how to free associate in the moment. One reason why you are probably reluctant to ditch the script is because you are worried, and you probably play the scenario through your head a number of times, that when you're on stage and all eyes are on you, the lights are on you, the pressure is on, that you will suddenly blank. So in this video, what I want to give you is a backup plan that you can use to recover so that you have some peace of mind knowing that even when you're improvising, when you're sort of speaking off the cuff, you have a fail-safe mechanism in place that can back you up in case you forget what to say. This video is not about learning how to just free associate. I'll cover that in a future video. Now, despite the fact that you should not memorize your speech, and I highly recommend that you don't, there are some things that are actually helpful to memorize. And these things are included in what I will call in this video, the 3-layer method. And I want you to visualize this sort of like concentric circles. So there's a core, your core message. There's an outer circle, and then there's a circle even outside of that. Let's start with the core. This is layer 1. And this is the central message that you want to convey in your speech. And I would actually recommend conveying no more than 3 core messages. These are things that you should actually memorize. I would recommend framing each of the 3 main points of your speech in terms of a statement or a question. These 3 statements form the pillars or the foundation for my speech. I'm memorizing the statement or the thesis itself. I'm not memorizing all of the content that I'm going to use to reinforce that point. This is a really, really important point because if you try to memorize everything, you're going to fall flat, or you're going to lose your place, and then you'll be out of luck because you strayed from the rigid track that you set for yourself by memorizing everything. The second layer of this 3-layer method is what I would call the key phrases layer. And the idea here is that you want to remember key phrases and keywords that guide your storytelling, and don't memorize the actual story itself. So for example, I could say, when I was 23, I started my first business and I learned that failure is your greatest teacher. That's great. Let's pretend like I fleshed that out into a full-fledged story. I wouldn't want to actually memorize the whole story. First of all, that will come across as very dry in your delivery because you've rehearsed the same words in the same order again and again and again, and people can pick up on that. Instead, what you want to do is memorize key phrases or key words that will guide you along the path of the story. So for example, you could remember 23 years old, first business, failure. The beautiful thing about this is that if you memorize key phrases and words, your brain will actually fill out the rest of the story for you. What I would recommend doing actually is film yourself several times saying the story from beginning to end and say it in a different way each time. But again, use these key phrases and keywords to guide your path along the way. The third and most outer layer of this 3-layer method is transition phrases and recovery phrases. Transition phrases function to help connect you smoothly from one topic to another. And recovery phrases are useful when you lose focus or get off track and want to come back on track. So here are some examples. Transition phrases, let's start with those. Here's the thing, but here's what's interesting. Let me tell you why this matters. I love this one. Now here's where it gets really important, or here's where it gets really interesting. So what does this mean for you? After each of these transition phrases, you move on to the next topic or area that you're going to talk about. Here are some examples of recovery phrases. The key point is, what I want you to really understand is, let me put it this way. The bottom line is, here's the most important thing to remember. You should have an arsenal of transition phrases and recovery phrases that you just have committed to memory that you can use at a moment's notice when you either need a way to segue from one topic to another or you need a way to recover when you get off track. Here is why it's just so much better to not memorize everything when you're speaking. First, you come across in a way more authentic way. Your audience feels like this is the real, genuine you shining through. And even if you're really good at memorizing something, your audience can still tell. And you can probably tell. When there's a speaker, even if they have everything memorized to a T and it's super polished, you can usually still tell that it's memorized. The second thing is that when you don't memorize what you're saying, you connect more with your audience. They can actually feel that there's a real person there and that real person has real experiences that they can relate to. You also become way more flexible because if you get off track, it's no big deal. You know the overarching points that you want to hit, and you have some backup phrases that you can use if you get off track. And because you're more flexible, you actually become more confident. And people can tell when you're more confident. When you're confident, it sort of radiates through everything that you do. People want the real you. Ideally, the real unfiltered you, although sometimes there are situations, I get it, where it's just not appropriate to be unfiltered. But they want the you that's as close to the real you as humanly possible. They don't want all this fluff. They don't want memorized speeches. They don't want buzzwords. They don't want buzz phrases. They want your true, unadulterated message. And the more that you can ditch the script and rely on your actual thoughts in the moment, the more engaging of a speaker you're going to be. Could you imagine a world for a second where in one-on-one conversations, everything was memorized? You started your day out and you scripted every single conversation that you were going to have throughout the day. That would be very weird. It feels stilted, right? You wouldn't feel like you're being your genuine, authentic self. Why does public speaking have to be any different? Why can't you be conversational and improvisatory and able to speak off the cuff just like you can in a conversation? So ditch the script and remember, audiences will, in almost every situation, prefer a 7 out of 10 speech that was free associated over a 10 out of 10 speech that was delivered from a polished script. So just keep that in mind, and happy speaking.